Hey folks, Quillyteen here, and welcome to Why You Should Buy the Crusader Kings board game in 5 minutes or less. Or more. The Crusader Kings board game is based on the incredibly successful computer game, and it really does capture the mood of playing Crusader Kings 2, except tabletop and with your friends. It's up to 5 players can play this game at once. Each player will take control of a noble family that is responsible for ruling over a particular area in Europe. What I love about this game, the biggest thing with this game, is how you resolve challenges. When you have to do a test to see if you're successful at something, you will be going to your family's trait bag. This will hold the number of tokens that represent the sort of genetics and reputation and personality of your ruler. There are numerous different ways to control what genetic traits go into the bag, as well as ways that you can remove traits, and this can super affect your ability to succeed at challenges over the course of the game. Generally speaking, you will draw 1 token from the bag and require 1 success to complete a task. Tokens will generally speaking either be green, which is a success, or red, which is a failure. So turns out attractive people might have a bigger chance at succeeding in life than someone who is lame. In addition to that though, some traits will have symbols. For example, honest is a positive trait. People like honest people. Whereas deceitful is negative. It is a bad trait. However, if you're taking an intrigue action, these traits will actually work the opposite as usual. They have a little symbol to remind you of that on the trait itself. If you're doing an intrigue action, you pull deceitful, you can treat this as a success, or you can take this opportunity to permanently remove deceitful from your trait bag, making it better over the course of the game. The source of tokens mostly will come from marriage and your children. When your ruler marries someone, the spouse's trait then gets immediately added to your dynasty bag. At some point, your ruler will grow old and die, or become assassinated and die. Either way, when your ruler dies, you do not remove anything from your bag. Instead, your new king or queen will then rule your nation, and any traits they had will then go into your bag. So another big part of the game is having a number of children and then maybe finding ways to manipulate which children are still alive to inherit the throne. Meanwhile, other players might be looking to assassinate your attractive genius son. The gameplay itself is incredibly tense. And the reason is, the goal of this game is to end up with the most victory points at the end of the game. But it's a very low victory point game. A single point swing in any direction can make all the difference, and probably will make the difference in terms of success or failure. At the end of the game, you'll get 1 point for every province you control. Thing is, each player starts the game with 4 or 5 provinces, and 8 is the most any player can control. So at 8 points is sort of like your base level for winning. You can then get an extra point or 2 if you complete certain milestones. For example, if you're the first person to build 3 castles, or the first person to have 4 development cards, for example. There's extra little milestones that you can get for that, which will give you an extra point. Again, it's still going to be low scoring, 9 points, maybe 10, and that means a single provincial swing is massive. Now, the core gameplay loop is as such. The game is divided into 3 generations. This doesn't really have anything to do with the sort of deaths and births of your own characters, just a way of dividing up the game. At the start of each generation, you will be drawing a number of these action cards. On the first round of your generation, you'll be taking 2 of these cards and putting them out in front of you. When it's your turn, you'll flip over the top card and take that action. When it's your second turn, you'll flip over the second card, take that action. Then it's time for a new round. Of your cards in hand, you'll once again pick 2 more of those, put them down in front of you, and then again go through those 2 options, and then you'll do that 1 more time. So this means you do need a fair amount of pre-planning, because at the start of the generation is when you pick your action cards from a variety of different categories. Taxing, mobilization and invasion, intrigue, building and development, and crusading. Crusading, very important. Every person in Crusader Kings has to attempt to crusade once per generation. Succeed, and your family claims some land in the Holy Land. Fail, and whoever is sent on the crusade dies, which, by the way, is a great way to get rid of an undesirable son who might have a negative trait and be blocking a more successful daughter, for example. There are multiple points of tension in this game. One of the weirdest that you might not expect is actually the marriage game. Marrying people with good traits who control important locations is a highly competitive area of this game. You can actually marry characters belonging to another player's dynasty. So you have a son, I have a daughter, hey, let's get them married. This will form an alliance between the 2 players. However, an important decision will be, where does this new couple live? Which dynasty do they join? Do I want their son to join me over here? Therefore, I will have control over that and then potentially add that trait to my bag should my daughter at that point become queen of my kingdom. Or am I okay with my daughter leaving for the other person's kingdom, and then whatever trait she has will go into that dynasty's bag eventually. It's a big point of negotiation. If you have a son with a bad trait and you really want to offload him to someone just to open up your dynasty a little bit, then maybe you'll have to bribe me with a dowry. Maybe I'll be like, okay, I'll take your loser son, but you have to throw in 3 gold or something like that. The other big point of tension is the intrigue actions. Bribing a chancellor. Assassinating rulers is very difficult. You need 3 successors for that. But assassinating their promising son and heir only takes 1 success. Very devastating move. And then finally, there's warfare itself. The sneak attacks are incredibly rare. They're not really effectively possible. You can, generally speaking, see things coming. The problem is, even if you see an invasion coming, are you going to be able to do something about it? Well, maybe a little diplomacy can help there, because you can have other players potentially help out when you're fighting someone else, potentially someone who's already winning the game, and you decide to take them down as a group. This can absolutely 100% happen. So my friends and I have played the Crusader Kings board game a ton of time, and we actually love it. I feel like it's just the right mix of, it's the right pacing that you're going to be able to get it done in one sitting without getting too tired. A lot of it is sort of internal development and fun. You know, you're doing your own thing, you're building yourself up, and you're feeling good. It's not constant warfare, you're not constantly at each other's throats, but there is a constant tension there, and when something does happen, it's incredibly dramatic. I do have one negative to say about this game, though, and it's that the manual is absolutely terrible. They did a really bad job of editing this, in my opinion. First of all, I think the manual could be half the length that it currently is. Now, the length of the instruction manual means that it can be very hard to find some rule that you're trying to reference. It doesn't help that it's not organized in a very logical way. It doesn't help that some of the information for a particular situation is effectively split into 2 separate areas dealing with 2 halves of a particular situation, which means you have to look up more than one place to get all the information you want. And finally, this game went through a fairly long beta testing and balancing period. Some of the old rules that no longer apply are still referenced in this manual, so you will sometimes get some incorrect information. A couple of the event cards as well may refer to like a trait that doesn't exist anymore, and that can lead to some definite confusion. At the time of recording, there is an errata and a FAQ available online. Hopefully at some point there's a volume 2 of the manual, but honestly, it just needed a much better editor on the manual, and it is a really big black stain on what is otherwise an unbelievably good game. So if you get the game and you're confused about how to play it, it might not be you, it might be this. Check online for the latest FAQ and errata, and hope maybe a version 2 of the manual at some point.